The arrival. The turret spaceships hung in the void, motionless and imposing like monstrous insects, so smug and certain in their perceived invincibility that they never saw the human warships drop out of warp drives and slit their throats. For thousands of years, the turrets dominated their slice of the galaxy with superior technology and numbers. No species could challenge them. Their hive-like coordination and four-armed infantry made planetary invasions routine. Colonies submitted or died with no middle ground. So when a panicked transmission arrived from their most distant outpost on Zeta Reticuli 4, the turret high command went into denial. Governor Cygnus reported that an unknown bipedal species packing advanced weapons, unseen before, had overrun their defenses in mere hours before the signal cut out. Tigges relayed one final image, a tall two-armed alien in gray armor firing some projectile weapon as it charged straight at him. High Command reacted how anyone would have told that their invincibility had been shattered by a species who barely touched the stars. Complete disbelief, but they had to respond to prove their strength. Admiral Zorks took his 50 most ruthless warships to Zeta Reticuli 4 to squash this nuisance and mount their primitive weapons as trophies. Scans detected a single alien vessel in orbit, its alloys unknown to turret databases. Zorks thought his fleet could pluck it from the sky on a whim. He ordered it seized, and the creatures inside interrogated until they pleaded for the mercy of death. But that ship belonged to Captain Andrew Green and his 5-person team from the United Earth Space Command. They had come in peace to establish contact with a new civilization, but now they were the only humans who stood in the way of a vicious alien reprisal against the unprepared colony below. The war had already begun. Captain Green gripped the armrests of his chair, sweat beading on his brow as the turret fleet closed in around his small spacecraft. The blinking screens in front of him showed 50 red dots converging on their position, each one a warship bristling with advanced weaponry. Lieutenant Rodriguez, initiate evasive maneuvers. Green barked. Get us out of this system. Rodriguez's fingers flew across the navigation console. Aye, Captain. The human craft darted and weaved, its smaller size and nimble handling allowing it to slip through gaps in the turret formation. Zorks slammed a fist on his command chair, mandibles clicking in frustration as the humans evaded capture again and again. Open fire, he snarled. Bring me that ship. The void lit up with plasma torpedoes and searing laser beams. The human ship shuddered as a few glancing blows struck its shields, alarms blaring on the bridge. But Rodriguez held his course, dodging the worst of the barrage with uncanny skill. Green watched the shield redouts drop into the red. They couldn't keep this up forever. Escape was a fading hope now. His mind raced, searching for a way to even the odds. Then it hit him. Sergeant Thompson, target the nearest enemy's engines with the EMP cannon. Thompson grinned, already spinning up the experimental weapon. With pleasure, sir. He centered the crosshairs over the glowing thrusters of a turret frigate and fired. The electromagnetic pulse lanced out, frying delicate systems and overloading power relays. The frigate's lights flickered and died as it lurched drunkenly. All propulsion lost. The turret fleet paused, shocked by the crude but effective attack. Zorks howled with wounded pride, even as uncertainty crept into his tactical mind. He had assumed the humans were primitive, helpless prey. Perhaps that assessment had been premature. All ships, surround them, he snapped. Prepare boarding parties. As the turret vessels moved into position, assault pods launching from their sides, Green turned to his crew with hardened resolve. Arm yourselves, he ordered. They're coming aboard. Let's show them what humans are made of. The team rushed to the armory, donning their powered armor and checking weapons. They were few, but they were the best Earth had to offer, and they would not go down without a fight. The first boarding pod latched onto the hull with a metallic clang. Green and his people took up positions, pulses pounding as they aimed rifles at the airlock. The door hissed open, revealing hulking turret shock troops with murder in their eyes. Green bared his teeth and whispered, "Come and get it, you bastards." The first strike. The airlock doors exploded inward with a screech of rending metal. Through the smoke and sparks, the hulking forms of turret shock troops stormed into the human ship, their forearms bristling with cruel blades and barbed rifles. They expected to find helpless, primitive prey. Instead, they were met by a storm of gunfire. Captain Green and his crew had taken up defensive positions, pouring precise bursts from their advanced assault rifles into the boarding parties. The turrets, caught completely off guard by the ferocity of the human resistance, stumbled and fell, their armor cracking under the onslaught. "Fall back! Fall back!" Cygnus roared, his mandibles flaring in shock and outrage. He had never seen his warriors so outmatched, especially not by a lesser species. The turrets scrambled for cover, dragging their wounded behind them. In the momentary lull, Green locked eyes with Thompson. An unspoken plan passed between them. They had to seize this chance. "Cover me," Green whispered, then sprinted for the nearest turret boarding pod still latched to the ship's hull. Thompson laid down suppressing fire, driving the aliens back as Green vanished inside the pod. What he found took his breath away. The pod was crammed with technology beyond anything the UESC had even dreamed of: quantum computers, zero-point energy cells, phased plasma rifles. In an instant, he understood. This was the key to everything, to humanity's future. "Thompson, get in here. Grab everything you can carry," Green called, already stuffing datapads and weapon prototypes into his pack. Thompson backed toward the pod, rifle still barking. On the bridge, Rodriguez fought to keep the ship from shaking apart as the turret fleet pounded them with torpedoes. Beside him, Davis tore through the engine room, patching ruptured conduits and rerouting power with desperate ingenuity. "I can't take much more of this, Emily," Rodriguez shouted over the klaxons. Green and Thompson emerged from the pod, laden with stolen alien tech. For a heartbeat, it seemed they might just pull this off. Then a shadow fell over them. "You dare steal from us, primates. You will pay for this insult with your lives." The turrets charged, and the cramped corridor erupted into vicious close-quarters combat. Green and Thompson fought with desperate skill, weaving between slashing blades and hammering fists. But they were badly outnumbered. Thompson cried out as his spear pierced his side. Green felt his strength ebbing as he parried blow after crushing blow. Just as Cygnus raised his halberd for a killing strike, an eerie hum filled the air. The turret's armor suddenly went dark, their weapons falling dead in their hands. They looked around in confusion and growing dread. On the bridge, Davis grinned fiercely as she slammed her fist down on the EMP trigger. "Choke on that, you bastards." Green and Thompson wasted no time. They cut down the helpless elites with ruthless efficiency, Cygnus's head bouncing across the deck. As the last turret fell, they staggered back to the airlock, clutching their wounded sides and invaluable cargo. "Rodriguez, get us out of here now," Green gasped into his comm. "Set course for Arcturus Station, maximum burn." The human ship, trailing smoke and molten debris, suddenly leaped forward, vanishing into hyperspace just as the turret fleet closed in for the kill. On the bridge of his flagship, Zorx howled in thwarted rage, slamming his fists into the armrests of his command chair until they buckled. "This isn't over, humans," he seethed, mandibles quivering with hate. "Run while you can. I will find you, and I will flay the flesh from your bones." The turret armada swung about, powering up their warp drives, hungry for blood and vengeance. The hunt was on. The trap. The human ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, the stars snapping back into pinpricks of light. Captain Green leaned forward in his chair, his eyes widening as the viewscreen filled with the image of Proxima Centauri. But where there should have been the gleaming spires of the UESC outpost, there was only destruction. Smoldering ruins stretched across the planet's surface, the charred remains of human settlements, and the twisted wreckage of UESC ships littering the once thriving colony. An eerie silence hung over the devastation, broken only by the occasional crackle of still-burning fires. "My God," Green whispered, his voice tight with shock and anger. Rodriguez scanned for survivors. Rodriguez's fingers danced across the console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm picking up a faint distress signal, Captain. It's coming from an underground bunker near the Central Command Center." Green stood, his jaw set. "Suit up. We're going down there. Thompson, Davis, you're with me. Rodriguez, keep an eye out for any incoming threats." The trio donned their protective gear, checking the seals on their helmets and the charge on their weapons. The airlock hissed open, revealing the ruined landscape of the outpost. As they stepped out onto the surface, their boots crunched on the ash and debris. Strange alien footprints marred the dust, the imprints too large and too many to be human. Scorch marks from Torit plasma weapons scared the rubble, the telltale sign of their ruthless attack. Green motioned for Thompson and Davis to follow him, picking his way through the ruins towards the bunker's entrance. The door hung askew, half melted by the heat of the assault. They entered cautiously, weapons at the ready, the beams from their flashlights cutting through the gloom. Huddled in the dimly lit interior were a handful of survivors, their faces gaunt and haunted. Among them was a woman in a tattered lab coat, her dark hair streaked with gray. She looked up as the team approached, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "Dr. Chen," Green asked, lowering his rifle. "I'm Captain Andrew Green of the UESC. We picked up your distress signal." Chen nodded, her voice hoarse. "Thank God you came. The Torates, they attacked without warning. We didn't stand a chance." Green knelt beside her, offering a canteen of water. Why did they do this? What were they after? Chen took a sip, her hands shaking. "We were studying an artifact, something we found buried beneath the outpost. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen, technology far beyond our own. I think that's what they wanted." She reached into her pocket, pulling out a small crystalline object that pulsed with an inner light. Green stared at it, a flicker of hope kindling in his chest. "This artifact, could it help us fight the Torates?" Chen nodded slowly. "I believe so. Combined with the right technology, it could give us the edge we need." Green stood, his mind racing. The stolen Torit tech, the artifact. It was a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless. "We're getting you out of here, all of you. Rodriguez, prep the medbay and ready the ship for launch." Thompson helped Chen to her feet, supporting her as they made their way back to the airlock. But as they stepped out into the ruins, a flicker of movement caught Green's eye. He spun, rifle raised, just as a cloaked figure leaped from the shadows. The Torit assassin was on them in seconds, a blur of blades and fury. Thompson shoved Chen behind him, firing point-blank into the alien's chest. The assassin staggered but didn't fall, lashing out with a wicked-looking dagger. Davis cried out as the blade found its mark, slicing through her suit and into her side. Green and Thompson opened fire, the air filling with the stench of ozone and burning flesh. The assassin crumpled, twitching as the life drained from its body. "Davis." Green rushed to her side, his heart in his throat. Blood seeped through her fingers as she pressed a hand to the wound, her face pale. Thompson hoisted her into his arms, his expression grim. "We need to get her to the ship now." In the medbay, Rodriguez worked frantically to stem the bleeding, his hands slick with blood. Green watched helplessly as Davis fought for her life, every second counting. The Torates would be coming, and Earth was their only hope. The escape. The human ship streaked through hyperspace, stars blurring past the viewports in shimmering streaks of light. In the medbay, Thompson sat hunched beside Davis's bed, his eyes fixed on the readouts that monitored her vital signs. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the room, each pulse a fragile reassurance that she still clung to life. Thompson clenched his fists, the memory of the Torit ambush replaying in his mind. He should have been faster, should have seen the cloaked assassin before it was too late. Now Davis paid the price for his failure, her life hanging by a thread. In the ship's research lab, Dr. Chen pored over the alien artifact, her brow furrowed in concentration. The device pulsed with an eerie blue light, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change before her eyes. Fascinating, Chen murmured, her fingers flying across the holographic display. These energy readings are off the charts. This technology is beyond anything we've ever encountered. Captain Green leaned over her shoulder, his eyes widening as he studied the data. Are you saying this artifact could be the key to defeating the Torits? Chen nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. If my calculations are correct, this device is capable of manipulating gravity and space-time itself. With this kind of power, we could turn the tide of the war. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, the lights flickering overhead. Thompson's head snapped up, his hand reaching for his sidearm. What the hell was that? Green tapped his comm badge. Bridge, report. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom, laced with static. Captain, we're picking up strange energy fluctuations throughout the ship. It seems to be emanating from the artifact. Thompson's eyes narrowed. He had noticed the same fluctuations earlier, a nagging sense of unease growing in the pit of his stomach. Captain, I don't like this. That thing is messing with our systems. Green nodded grimly. Agreed. Dr. Chen, we need to isolate the artifact now. Chen quickly began the process of transferring the device to a secure containment unit. But as she reached for the artifact, it suddenly pulsed with a blinding flash of light. The ship lurched violently, throwing the crew to the floor. Davis, Thompson yelled, scrambling towards her bed. But before he could reach her, the artifact pulsed again, and the world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of swirling colors. When the light faded, Thompson found himself on the bridge along with the rest of the crew. They stared out the viewports in stunned silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. The stars were gone, replaced by an endless expanse of swirling nebulae and unfamiliar constellations. The ship's navigation systems blinked erratically, unable to make sense of their surroundings. Where the hell are we? Green whispered, his voice tight with tension. Before anyone could respond, a massive shadow fell across the ship. A vessel of titanic proportions loomed before them, its hull pulsing with an otherworldly energy. It dwarfed their ship like a mountain beside an ant. The crew braced for impact, their hearts pounding in their chests. But instead of an attack, a strange garbled transmission filled the bridge, the alien language grating and incomprehensible. Green turned to Chen, his face grim. Can you translate that? Chen shook her head, frustration etched in her features. No, sir. Even our most advanced translation software can't make sense of it. As the crew debated their next move, the artifact began to pulse once more, its light growing brighter and more intense with each passing second. Thompson felt a growing sense of dread, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. Captain, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. First contact. Green clenched his jaw, his mind racing as he weighed the risks and potential rewards of attempting to communicate with the enigmatic alien vessel. The fate of his crew and perhaps all of humanity hung in the balance. He turned to Lieutenant Rodriguez, his voice steady despite the uncertainty gnawing at his gut. Open a channel. Broadcast a message of peace and cooperation using basic mathematics and universal symbols. Let's hope they understand our intentions. Rodriguez nodded, his fingers flying across the comm panel. Aye, Captain. Transmitting now. The bridge fell silent, the crew holding their collective breath as they waited for a response. Seconds turned to minutes, each passing moment stretching into an eternity. Suddenly, the comm system crackled to life, a series of complex patterns and shapes appearing on the view screen. Rodriguez's eyes widened as he analyzed the transmission. Sir, they're responding in kind. It appears they're willing to communicate. Green felt a flicker of hope in his chest, tempered by the knowledge that they were venturing into uncharted territory. He stood, squaring his shoulders as he addressed his crew. Dr. Chen, Sergeant Thompson, you're with me. We're going to board their ship and establish first contact. Rodriguez, you have the con." As the trio prepared to depart, the medbay doors hissed open, revealing a pale but determined Davis. She leaned heavily against the doorframe, her eyes blazing with resolve. "Captain, I'm coming with you. My expertise in xenobiology could be crucial in understanding these aliens." Green hesitated, torn between concern for her well-being and the knowledge that her skills could indeed prove invaluable. After a long moment, he nodded. "All right, Davis. But the moment you feel your injury slowing you down, you return to the ship." "Understood." "Yes, sir." The 4 crew members donned their spacesuits, checking and double-checking the seals and life support systems. Green tucked the alien artifact into a secure container, the device pulsing with an eerie blue light. As they entered the airlock, Green felt a weight settle on his shoulders. The future of humanity, and perhaps the galaxy itself, rested on the outcome of this encounter. The airlock doors opened, revealing the vast expanse of the alien vessel. A tractor beam guided them effortlessly towards a cavernous docking bay, the air shimmering with an otherworldly energy. As they stepped onto the deck, a delegation of tall, slender beings emerged from the shadows, their iridescent skin shifting and changing in the dim light, their large, luminous eyes fixed upon the human crew. Dr. Chen gasped as her neural implant translated the aliens' telepathic communication. "They call themselves the Kalari. They say they've been watching our conflict with the Taurites." The Kalari leader stepped forward, its voice echoing in their minds. "We possess technology far beyond your own or that of your enemies. The artifact you carry is a remnant of our ancient civilization, which once spanned the stars before a great cataclysm nearly destroyed us." Green felt a chill run down his spine, the implications of the Kalari's words sinking in. "Why reveal yourselves to us now? We offer to share our knowledge and technology with your species, but only if you prove yourselves worthy. You must face a series of challenges designed to test your intelligence, adaptability, and moral character." Green glanced at his crew, seeing the determination etched on their faces. This was their chance, perhaps their only chance, to turn the tide against the Taurites and secure humanity's place in the galaxy. "We accept your terms." As the words left his lips, a sudden tremor rocked the alien ship. The Kalari leader's eyes widened, a flicker of alarm passing across its features. "A Taurit fleet has emerged from hyperspace. They are attacking our vessel." Green felt his blood run cold, the realization that they were now caught between 2 powerful alien forces hitting him like a physical blow. He turned to his crew, his voice hard with resolve. "We fight alongside our new allies. We repel the Taurites and prove our worth to the Kalari. Failure is not an option." As klaxons blared and the ship shuddered under the onslaught of Taurit weapons, Green and his team prepared to face the greatest challenge of their lives. The fate of humanity and the secrets of the galaxy itself hung in the balance. The battle for survival. As the Taurit torpedoes hammered the Kalari ship, the deck lurched beneath Green's feet. Alarms blared and crew members shouted. Zilkor grabbed Green's arm. "Come, we must arm ourselves." They sprinted through twisting corridors as the ship shuddered, lights flickering. Zilkor led them to a large room lined with glowing panels. With a few deft touches, the panels slid open, revealing racks of sleek weapons and shimmering devices. "Take these." Zilkor handed each human a rifle that hummed with power. "Aim and fire. The targeting is intuitive." He passed out small discs that adhered to their suits. "Personal force fields. They will absorb impacts and energy." Green hefted the rifle, finding it surprisingly light. His years of drills took over. "All right, team," you heard him. "Gear up and move out." They charged through the ship, following Zilkor. Green's heart pounded as he rounded each corner, expecting Taurit boarders. The ship rocked again, nearly throwing them off their feet. Zilkor pointed to a large door. "Defense station. We must hold this position." The door opened to a room dominated by a huge viewport. Consoles flickered with holographic displays. Beyond the viewport, turret ships swarmed like hornets, pummeling the Kalari shields. Green, Thompson, and Davis took up positions at the consoles. The controls were alien but responded to their touch. Targeting reticules appeared, locking onto turret ships. They fired, and lances of searing light leaped out, spearing enemy vessels. Dr. Chen worked frantically alongside Zilkor, her fingers flying over the displays, shield strength dropping, diverting power from secondary systems. The human ship, retrofitted with stolen turret tech, leaped forward, weapons blazing. The turret ships split their fire, caught off guard by the second attacker. Rodriguez bared his teeth as his fingers danced over the firing controls. "Let's see how you like a taste of your own medicine." Back on the Kalari ship, Green saw the human vessel join the fray. Pride surged in his chest. "That's my crew. Keep firing." But for every turret ship they destroyed, two more took its place. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks as the Kalari ship's hull buckled under the onslaught. Zilkor slammed a fist on his console. "We cannot sustain this. Our shields are failing." Dr. Chen looked up, her face grim. "Zilkor says the artifact can turn the tide, but the cost." Her voice broke. Green whirled to face the alien. "What cost? What are you saying?" Zilkor met his gaze. "The artifact can unleash a weapon of immense power, but it requires a life force to activate." Green's blood ran cold. "You're asking me to sacrifice one of my crew." Green looked out at the battle raging beyond the viewport, his ship and crew fighting for their lives, for Earth. Could he really make that choice? Trade a life for victory? Davis pushed herself upright, her face pale but determined. "I'll do it." Green spun to face her. "Absolutely not. One life to save billions, Captain. Seems like a fair trade." Thompson gripped her shoulder. "Emily, no." Another blast rocked the ship. Zilkor's console blared with warnings. "Captain, we have little time." Green clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had sworn to protect his crew, but Earth needed him to be more than a captain now. Earth needed him to be a savior, even if that meant damning his own soul. He closed his eyes, the weight of the choice crushing him. In the end, there was only one decision he could make. He opened his eyes and turned to face Davis. Before he could finish, a deafening explosion rocked the Kalari ship. The deck bucked beneath their feet, throwing the crew off balance. Alarms blared as the lights flickered. Green stumbled, catching himself on a console. "Report." Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she scanned the readouts. "Hull breach on Deck 7. We have boarders, Captain." "Turret shock troops." "Thompson, Davis, get to Deck 7 and repel those boarders. Buy us as much time as you can." The two soldiers nodded grimly, checking their weapons. Thompson clasped Davis's shoulder. "Stay behind me. Don't push yourself." Davis shrugged him off, her jaw tight with pain and determination. "I'll do what I have to. Now move." As they raced off, Green turned to Chen. "Doctor, with me. We need to get to the artifact." They sprinted through the shuddering corridors, the sounds of distant gunfire and inhuman roars echoing through the ship. Green's mind raced. The turrets were after the artifact. They couldn't let them have it. They burst into the containment chamber, skidding to a halt as they saw Zilkor already there. The Kalari leader stood before the pulsing artifact, his hands raised in preparation. "Zilkor," Green shouted, "what are you doing?" The alien turned, his luminous eyes filled with a strange mix of sorrow and peace. "Captain Green, I have been monitoring your crew's thoughts. I have seen the depths of your courage, your selflessness. You were willing to sacrifice yourselves for us, for the greater good." He gestured to the artifact. "This device can stop the turrets, but it requires a life force to power it. I cannot ask any of you to give your lives, but I can give mine." Green stepped forward, his throat tight. "Zilkor, no. We can find another way." The Kalari shook his head. There is no other way. You and your people are the key to defeating the Taurids, to bringing peace. My life is a small price to pay for that future. Tears glinted in Chen's eyes. Zilkor, thank you. The alien nodded, then turned back to the artifact. He began to chant in his melodic language, the device glowing brighter with each word. Green watched, torn between gratitude and grief. Zilkor was giving his life for them, for humanity. It was a debt that could never repay. Suddenly, the door to the chamber exploded inward. Taurit warriors poured through, led by a massive brute in spiked armor. Kurzak, the Taurit commander, roared in triumph as he saw the artifact. Thompson and Davis staggered into view, their armor scorched and dented. They had fought bravely, but the Taurits were too many. As the aliens charged forward, Zilkor's chanting reached a crescendo. The artifact pulsed with blinding light, energy arsing from its surface. Zilkor's body began to flare and dissolve, his life force drawn into the device. Kurzak howled in rage, realizing what was happening. He lunged for the artifact, murder in his eyes. Green leaped to intercept him, slamming into the turret with bone-crushing force. They rolled across the deck, grappling and punching with desperate strength. I will not stop this, human. Kurzak snarled, spittle flying from his jaws. The artifact will be ours. Never. Green growled back, driving his fist into the alien's throat. We will end you. The artifact shuddered, its glow becoming a blaze of searing radiance. Zilkor gave a final cry, his body disintegrating into motes of light that swirled into the device. Then, with a soundless roar, the artifact released a massive wave of energy. It washed over the chamber, the ship, the entire battlefield. The Taurit ships shuddered and went dark, their systems fried by the pulse. On the Kalari bridge, Green and Kurzak were flung apart, the shockwave rendering them unconscious. Chen, Thompson, and Davis staggered and fell, the world spinning around them. A new dawn. As the crew struggled to their feet, they looked at each other with stunned, haunted eyes. Zilkor was gone. The balance of power had shifted. Nothing would ever be the same. Thompson helped Davis to her feet, holding her close. Chen knelt beside Green, checking his pulse with trembling fingers. The artifact sat in its chamber, dark and dormant once more. As the energy wave dissipated, Green and his crew picked themselves up off the deck, their ears ringing and vision blurred. Emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the damaged Kalari ship. Green touched his forehead, his fingers coming away slick with blood. He pushed the pain aside, his mind already racing. Thompson, Davis, you still with us? He called out, his voice hoarse. The two soldiers stumbled into view, their armor scorched and dented. Thompson nodded grimly. We're banged up, but we'll live. Can't say the same for our friend here. He nudged the unconscious Kurzak with his boot. Green clenched his jaw. They were in bad shape, and the Taurits wouldn't stay stunned for long. They had to act fast. Thompson, Davis, scavenge what you can. Weapons, tech, anything that might give us an edge. Chen, see if you can figure out what makes that thing tick. He jerked his chin at the artifact. I'll have a chat with our guest. As the others set to work, Green dragged Kurzak to a corner, slapping the Taurit's face until his eyes fluttered open. Kurzak snarled, straining against his bonds. You think you've won, human. You've only delayed the inevitable. Green leaned in close. Funny. I was about to say the same to you. See, I think you Taurites aren't as tough as you'd like everyone to believe. Take away your fancy toys, and what are you? Just another bully on the block. Kurzak's eyes narrowed, but Green saw the flicker of uncertainty. He pressed on. We're going to end this war, Kurzak, and it's not going to be the way you think. As Green grilled Kurzak, an idea began to take shape. The Taurits relied on fear, on their aura of invincibility. If they could turn that against them. A shout from Chen interrupted his thought. Captain, I think I found something. The artifact. It's more than just a weapon. It's a beacon. If we can activate it, we might be able to lure the turrets into a trap. Green's eyes gleamed. Yes, that could work. Use the artifact to draw the turret fleet in, then hit them with everything we have. It was a gamble, but it might be their only shot. Suddenly, a chilling sound filled the air, a distress call coming from the Kalari ship's comm system. A colony not far from their position was under brutal siege by a massive turret force. Millions of lives hung in the balance. The crew fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Green felt torn. Every instinct screamed at him to help the colony, to save those innocent lives. But if they diverted now, they might lose their one chance to stop the turrets for good. As if sensing his thoughts, Chen spoke up, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. There might be a way to do both. The artifact, I think I can use it to create a wormhole. It would be like nothing we've ever attempted. We could jump straight to the colony, catch the turrets by surprise. But she hesitated, and Green felt a chill run down his spine. But what, Doctor? But what? But the energy required, it would be immense. The ship might not survive the journey. We could be torn apart, or worse. Green looked around at his crew, battered but unbroken. Thompson and Davis, ready to fight to their last breath. Chen, brilliant and brave. And beyond them, the countless lives crying out for help. He made his choice. There was no other option. Sometimes, you had to roll a hard 6. Do it, Chen. Get that wormhole open. We're going to save that colony, and we're going to bury the turrets, no matter the cost. As klaxons blared and the ship groaned around them, Green felt a grim smile tug at his lips. One way or another, this ended today. Captain Green stood on the bridge of the battered Kalari ship, his face grim as he surveyed the damage. Consoles sparked and the deck plates groaned beneath his feet. He turned to Dr. Chen, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. Prepare the artifact for the wormhole jump. It's our only chance to save the colony. Chen nodded, her fingers flying across the controls. Aye, Captain. But the ship, I don't know if she'll hold together. Green placed a hand on her shoulder. She'll hold. She has to. He turned to face his crew, his eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. Thompson, his trusted sergeant, standing tall despite his injuries. Davis, the brilliant engineer, her face streaked with grease and determination. And Rodriguez, his stalwart pilot, ready to fly them into the jaws of hell itself. I know I've asked the impossible of you, Green said, his voice rough with emotion. You've sacrificed so much, risked everything. And now I'm asking you to do it again. But those people down there, they're counting on us. We're their only hope. Green nodded, his throat tight, to the end. He turned back to Chen. Initiate the jump. The artifact pulsed with an eerie blue light, its surface crackling with energy. The ship shuddered as the device tore a hole in the fabric of reality, the wormhole yawning open like a hungry maw. Green gripped the armrests of his chair as the ship lurched forward, the inertial dampeners struggling to compensate. The view screen filled with a swirling maelstrom of color and light, the stars stretching into impossible spirals as they plunged into the heart of the vortex. The ship bucked and heaved, the hull groaning under the strain. Alarms blared and sparks rained down from overloaded conduits. Green clenched his jaw, his knuckles white on the armrests. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The ship shot out of the wormhole like a bullet from a gun, the besieged Kalari colony filling the view screen. The turret invasion force hung in space before them, their ships bristling with weapons. Green leaped to his feet, his voice ringing out across the bridge. All weapons, fire at will. Use the artifact's energy to boost our firepower. The Kalari crew leaped into action, their hands dancing across the controls. The ship's cannons roared to life, lances of searing light streaking out towards the turret fleet. The human crew manned their stations, their faces set with grim determination. The Torit ships reeled under the onslaught, their shields flickering and failing under the relentless barrage. Explosions bloomed in the void, the debris of shattered ships tumbling through space. But the turrets were quick to rally. Their return fire hammered the Kalari ship, the deck shuddering under the impacts. Green held fast, his eyes fixed on the view screen. Suddenly, a warning klaxon sounded. Rodriguez whirled in his seat, his eyes wide. "Captain, Kurzak has escaped. He's heading for the artifact chamber." Green's blood ran cold. He knew the Torit commander would stop at nothing to seize the artifact's power for himself. He turned to Thompson and Davis. "With me. We have to stop him." The three humans raced through the ship's corridors, the sounds of battle raging around them. They burst into the artifact chamber, weapons drawn, only to find Kurzak already there. The Torit stood before the artifact, his eyes wild with madness. In his hands, he held a strange device, its surface pulsing with the same eerie light as the artifact. He raised the device, a triumphant roar tearing from his throat. The artifact flared with blinding light, its energy surging out to envelop the Torit commander. But something was wrong. The light was too bright, the energy too wild. Kurzak screamed as the power tore through him, his body convulsing in agony. The artifact pulsed and shuddered, the light within it growing brighter and brighter. The ship groaned and shook, the energy ripping through its hull like paper. Green shielded his eyes, his mind racing. He knew what he had to do. The only way to stop the artifact, to save the colony and his crew. "Thompson, Davis, get out of here." Green shouted over the deafening roar. "That's an order." The two soldiers hesitated, their faces filled with determination and despair. They knew what Green was about to do, and they didn't want to leave him behind. But they also knew that their captain's decision was final. "Go now," Green repeated, his voice breaking. "Save the colony. Save our people." Tears streaming down their faces, Thompson and Davis turned and ran, racing for the escape pods. Green turned back to the artifact, his jaw set. Kurzak lay on the deck, his body twisted and broken, the device still clutched in his lifeless fingers. The artifact was out of control, its energy tearing the ship apart. Green knew he had only moments before it exploded, taking the colony and everything else with it. With a final, wrenching effort, he tore the core free, the artifact shuddering and sparking in his hands. He could feel the energy building, the device straining to contain the power within. He closed his eyes, a strange sense of peace washing over him. He had done his duty. His crew was safe. The colony would survive. The artifact exploded, a blinding flash of light consuming the chamber. The energy ripped through the ship, tearing it apart in a maelstrom of fire and debris. On the view screen of the human ship, the Kalari vessel vanished in a blaze of light, the Torit fleet consumed in the conflagration. The crews of both ships watched in stunned silence, the magnitude of what had just happened slowly sinking in. Captain Andrew Green was gone, sacrificed to save them all. But his legacy would live on, his name spoken with reverence by the Kalari and the humans alike. In the aftermath of the battle, the two races came together, united by their shared loss and the knowledge that they had been part of something greater than themselves. They had stood against the darkness and emerged victorious, the Torit threat vanquished at last. But even as they celebrated their triumph, they knew that the scars of the conflict would linger. The Torits had been defeated, but at a terrible cost. And the artifact, the source of so much hope and so much destruction, was gone, its secrets lost forever. As the human ship set course for home, the crew looked out at the stars, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had endured. They had lost their captain, their friend, but they had gained something too. A new understanding of the universe, of the forces that shaped it, and a new appreciation for the courage and sacrifice of those who stood against the darkness, no matter the cost.